Hi everyone, it's Kira and welcome back to the F-Series channel. Today I am joined with Beth, Dawny, Steph and Charlotte, and we're going to be talking to you all about Pirelli tyres, I can't say that word, specifically. Great start. Specifically, the two kind of different eras of Pirelli we've had in the last couple of years. So we're going to be talking about the tyres we had in 2018 and then when they changed to the C1 to C5 in 2019, 2020 and now 2021. So before we get into this video, if you do enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe to our channel down below. Charlotte, how many people did you say were not subscribed to our channel?
Well, currently there is 65% of you that are watching that are not subscribed, so make sure you do press that little red subscribe button down there.
Exactly. So yeah, before we get into it, go and do that. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. Not a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of seconds.
I was going to say, geez.
We can't say that for that long. Oh, you've done it now, right? Let's get into the video. Okay, so round in 2018, we had so many tyre compounds from Pirelli. I'm going to read this off my laptop because if not, I will forget. But we had the Hyper Softs, which were pink. We had the Ultra Softs. No, I think no, it was the Hyper Softs. I thought we had another one after that. We didn't, did we? I think the Hyper Softs were the ones that we named from Twitter. I remember that. They asked us to name them on Twitter. So anyway, we had the Hyper Softs that were pink, the Ultra Softs that were purple, the Super Softs that were red. We had the softs that were yellow, the mediums that were white, the hards that were blue, the super hards that were orange, and then we had the inters which were green and the full wets which were blue. That's a lot of tyres. We had a lot of tyres going on. They kept adding more and more and more every single season. And then I think everyone just like, we've had enough of this. So in 2019, Pirelli introduced the simple C1 to C5 kind of situation where you have 5 different compounds of tyres. However, you will only move across from soft, medium, hard. So one week the soft could be a C1, the next week it could be a C3. So you always have the same red, yellow, white. I think that's the colours I'm really going to forget. But it depends on which race you are. It depends on whether it's a C1 or it's a C5. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. My first question to you girls is, without kind of looking into it, just looking at it kind of on the surface, which one do you prefer?
I like the 2018 ones because it's pretty
colours.
They were so pretty. Like the pinks and purples were gorgeous.
Is the F-Series favourite tyre the Hyper Soft because it's pink?
The pink one.
Oh my god,
It
yes.
goes with the branding.
No, honestly, I think, I'm not being funny, I know what they are by the colours, but having soft, medium, hards now, and then being them 3 colours, but then them being a C1 or a C5, that just confuses my brain too much. Like, I can't be dealing with a soft being a C3 one week and then a C4 or whatever it is the next week. I just think that's really confusing,
But it kind of makes it easier, don't you think? Because it's still a soft tyre, so you just have to know that that's the one that's going to make you go zoom zoom the fastest, and the hard one's going to make you go the slowest.
Just call it a soft, not a soft C1 or a soft C5. Just call it soft tyre. I don't need to know what.
Yeah, but that's what they do most of the time. I don't know which one. I don't know.
What's the point of having C1 to 5 then?
Because it depends on the race. So like sometimes you need softer tyres, and then sometimes you will need harder tyres. Like at Silverstone, when the tyres were blowing up, we knew we needed hard tyres because clearly the soft tyres could not take the pressure, so the compound needed to be harder. But I don't know, it doesn't really affect I don't know, for me it doesn't affect my race weekend because I don't pay attention so much as to which tyre compounds that we're using. Or, I mean, if it's a soft, it's a soft. It doesn't matter if it's a C3 or a C5. Like, I just know that that's a soft tyre, so it's going to make it fastest the weekend. So, I don't know, I feel like, yeah.
I think it makes it a lot easier for entry-level fans to come in. So like if I was a new fan and I was trying to differentiate between 8 different tyres, all with different colours, and not knowing what means what and why one weekend we're using pink tyres and the next weekend we're using white tyres, I think it's a lot easier for like entry-level fans to understand that a red tyre is soft and then that's the softest one, and every weekend the red tyre is always the softest one. And then when you start to learn more, you can start to realise that if it's a C1 or a C2 or whatnot, that's when you can start to get into it, and that makes a lot more sense. But I think the change was, I think Formula One did realise that they had just kind of gone a bit overboard the years before, and it just needed stripped back because it was getting too complicated. And I'm sure when we had the however many tyres, the colour spectrum, did we even use hyper softs or super, like, did we use them? I'm
but
so
they're
sure.
so pretty.
I'm sure that like they didn't even get used. So what was the point in having these pretty tyres at either end of the spectrum when they weren't getting used?
Steph, you could say your point there with what were you going to say about the C5 and the C1?
Oh, yeah,
Did you say
so-
not being used that much? So it could go both ways.
Yeah, exactly. So throughout the 2020 season, we only used the C5, which was the softest compound. We only used that at 2 races, so I think it was Sochi and Abu Dhabi that we used the softest C5 compound. And why is that there if we don't need it? I mean, I think that 5 is a much better range than however many, like 7 or 8 that we had when it was the old tyre situation. So 5's already better, but do we even need 5 if we're only using those at 2 races out of 17 or 23 that we're going to have in 2021?
I mean, I think, like Donnie said, it's much easier for new fans to come into the sport and only essentially have to learn 3 tyres. And I think a lot of the time, if you're just watching F1 just for the sake of watching F1, a lot of the time I would argue that you don't even know that there is like C1 to C5 and you don't know like what that is for each particular tyre that weekend. I know I wouldn't know most of the time because that's just something I don't really care about. But I think with the previous tyres is because you had such a wide range, that's when you get the chances to have so many different types of strategy come in with tyres, which I feel like we don't get to see as much now, especially the fact that we have these 3 tyres. You just get the same, okay, it's going to be a 1-stop or a 2-stop race. This is the fastest way to go and go with it. I feel like we don't have as much range as we did for the 2018 tyres, where maybe that's where we would start to see teams at the back like Williams, Haas and Alpha have more of a gamble with the different tyre compounds and try something different compared to the 3 compounds that we've got right now.
But correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure was it not even with the colour range of however many tyres they had, it was still like 3 tyres from that range they'd pick for the weekend.
Yeah.
So in theory, you still had the jumps, and even with the new 5 tyres, it's not necessarily C1, 2, 3 or 2, 3, 4. It can sometimes be like C1 and jumping to like C3, 4, which kind of is what we saw back then. So it's so confusing.
I think tyres are
your
done.
point makes it feel like they don't even change it. They just took
Yeah.
colours away. Like,
Yeah, took the colours away and
Unbelievable.
changed them with a C4 or C5. Yeah,
Why
no.
are we having this conversation?
Why are we doing this? Come on, Pirelli. No, I think there's great points that you've all said there, and you've all kind of got different opinions on it, which I think is really good. Me personally, I like the colours. I like having a super soft. They still have like a super soft in Formula 2, so I like seeing that. I like the step lower than soft. Obviously, what do we have? Ultra soft, super soft, hyper soft. We have there was way too many softs and lower, you know. They went ham on that. That was way too much. But a lot of you answered the next question in your answers there. But it is this new C1 to C5 better for a new fan? Because that is why they introduced it, was to make it better for new fans coming in, so they didn't have to remember all these different colours and all these different ultra, hyper, extra hard, whatever they had that was the orange. They tried to make it easier for a fan, but is it easier or not? Because I can see it from both sides, you know. One way you can feel like, well, there is only the 3 colours you need to remember, but at the same time, one week is a C1, 1 week is a C4. Is that going to confuse people?
I think
it's...
oh, go on, Beef.
Oh, thanks. I think it's much better because the thing is, if you're saying with the previous tyre compounds, you only had like a certain amount of them that weekend, well, then you're going to watch F1 one weekend as a new fan and then think you've got your head wrapped around it. And then the next weekend, all the tyres are completely different. And you're like, well, what on earth is going on? Why are they different? Why are we not having this oh my God, I can't speak. Continuity? Whereas now, you know, every single weekend you're going to have soft, medium, hard tyres. Yes, those actually might be different when we talk about the C compounds, but you know every single weekend that's going to be the same, and you only then get the additional confusion if we have wet weather, and that's where we start to get the intermediate and we get the wets. But it never rains in F1, so if you're a new fan, you might be waiting years until you get a proper wet race to see how those tyres work. And every single wet race they're like, oh, it's really, you have to make sure when you're going onto a different tyre that it's the right one to go onto. And sometimes I'm like, this is boring me now. Like, either change the tyre or don't change the tyre. I don't care. You know what I mean?
No,
So-
I love wet race strategy because it's so interesting, especially like whether you're going to go on the inters or the wets. And I really like what you brought up there, because I think when you factor in the inters and the wets, it is then 5 compounds of tyre that you need to remember for a weekend. So it does make it more difficult. I think that yes, it is easier for a fan now because, yeah, like you said, you could end up with pinks, purples, and whatever the other one was one weekend, and then, you know, completely different colours. That's all I'm saying. And it gets confusing, especially because certain ones you will only see a few times a year, and then how do you remember? Because it's different for every race. So I like the fact that we've got this baseline for every race now, where we still have these compound tyres, but we still have the same colour compound tyres, but they can be changed to suit whichever track that we're on. I don't think a fan needs to a casual fan or a new fan necessarily needs to know about those changes in compounds. It's just, yeah, a lot of it with Formula One, it's a visual sport, and I think this visually makes it a lot easier to understand and interpret what's going on. And then if you think about pit stops as well, do you know what? I'm still confused now when we're doing pit stops. It's like, what colour have they gone on to? Is it a hard or is it a medium? So the fact that they've kind of taken away the confusion of having all of the different colours makes it a lot easier, especially for me trying to figure out what everyone's gone on to. You know, when everyone's in the pit lane on lap 9 because they've all chosen to do the same strategy, I just want to see, you know, I just want it to be easy so that I can see clearly what tyre compound everyone's on.
You said like casual fans or new fans. I'm not a casual fan or a new fan, and I still get confused.
Yeah.
So like,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So back in like 2018, when all the tyres were so many,
Yeah.
what was Crofty like? Was Crofty like even more a mess than he is
I
now?
can't even remember. I block him out.
Did you
yeah,
see
if
tyres that didn't
Crofty's
even exist
confused
that
at these
weekend?
tyres, what's he gonna be like when there
He
were
was
like 10
probably
tyres on the
awful.
grid?
We'll have to watch back the 2018 season with Beth, and then we'll have to see what Crofty was actually like.
Yeah. No, I do think what you're saying, Steph and Beth, is like, it is like visually it is better because you know that colours that colours that colours that. So I do agree, and I'm not being funny. Like, there was so many. They were so pretty, but there was so many. And like you said, we could go in Monza one week and not see any of the pink tyres, and then go somewhere else the next week and just see all the pink tyres and not know why or like for what reason. But yeah, I mean, visually I think it is helpful, but I still get confused when they talk about C1s. My brain is not there. Like, I'm not the type of person to talk about tyre compounds. Like, I don't care about that. I just
All you
care
need
about
to
the
know,
racing.
babe, C1 hard, C5 soft. That's it.
Perfect.
You're
That's it.
welcome.
I personally, I do think this 5 tyres is better and everything, but I'd love to see them going even softer, like a step even softer every weekend, because that would start forcing them to do like 2-stop races.
Yes.
Let's just, Pirelli, make them softer, please. Make
Get the
them
hyper
softer.
The hyper soft back, yeah.
Because you have drivers like Daniel Ricciardo who will just do like 50 laps on the soft. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, you shouldn't be able to
Yeah.
do that.
No.
You shouldn't be able to do
How many
100 million
races
laps on
last
soft.
season? And Ocon was like something stupid like 50 laps. Like, how many races did we see the softs last for ages when it should be the hards that last that long, not the softs? So,
That's a testament to the driver, not the tyres.
Oh my god. Alright, Matt and Brundle. Right. Okay, so moving on from that, we are going to kind of talk more about mandatory pit stops. We know there's a mandatory pit stop, and say you started on the soft, you then have to change the compound to the mediums. However, you only have to change compound once. So that means most of the time we will get a one-stop race. Now, we have the ability, as having 3 tyres every weekend now, in, like I say, if we had a C2, a C3, C4, we've got 3 tyre compounds. Do you think that the drivers in the team should be made to race with all 3 of those compounds in one race, so we inevitably get a 2-stop race? I mean, I get why we won't always want a 2-stop every single race, but we're now seeing more and more, and as the years go by in Formula One, we would just get 1-stop races. Do you think the drivers and the team should be pushed to use all 3 compounds?
Yes. Yes is the
No,
answer.
but Beth, go first.
because honestly, like, you know what I just think is with the one-stop races, a lot of the time teams will just hold out for a safety car, and then a safety car will happen and some will win, some will lose, and I know that's sort of part of it. However, if you had a 2-stop race, I feel like then the aspect of a safety car in conjunction with that would make it so much more exciting, and then you'd have people be like, right, okay, you go on the softs, go as hard as you want, just absolutely blast it, whatever, and then you go on the hard tyres and you're like, right, okay, chill out, you've got plenty of rubber, and then you just whack on the mediums with 1 lap to go, just as long as you get it done, that's all I care about.
No.
I just think it would just be so much more exciting, and I don't know why we don't do this.
No.
And I know Tommy from WTF1, he is all for this idea as well. He goes on about this like pretty much every single podcast he ever does, where he wants every tyre compound to be used in the race. And I fully agree with him.
No, I don't agree. Don't like that. Sorry, no. The thing is, what we have now is an issue with... Oh, I don't even know how to explain it, but I feel like
Because you're wrong.
making... Words, Steph, words. I feel like pit stops aren't going to change situations in the race, for example. So if we have to use all of the compounds, it's not necessarily changing strategy, and that's what we want to do. We want to change strategy, so it's different strategies that people are using.
That would change the strategy though.
But no, because everyone would be on a mandatory 2-stop. Right now,
Yeah,
everyone's
and
on a
it would-
mandatory 1-stop. Everyone's going to be on a mandatory 2-stop, and they're going
Yeah,
to go
but
for
you're
the
going to
same
use your
strategy.
tyres at a different site. So someone could start on a hard or someone could start on a soft. Then
But
you're
they
doing
won't.
different
They won't.
things.
They're all going to do the
they'll
same
all go
thing.
for the optimum tyre strategy, which is what everyone does now. If you
Yeah,
want to start
but
on
would
a
they?
medium,
Because we've all watched Formula 2, and when you go on the alternate strategy, you could do a mega race and you
but
could win the
Formula
race.
2 and Formula 1 are very
Well,
different.
very true.
Yeah.
It is better. Yeah. Carry on.
She's spoken.
I think I can see both sides, because I think there's some races where we do need 2 stops, because one, they are so boring,
Yeah.
and it would spice it up, and 2, you get to the end and like people are like, oh my god, are the tyres going to go, look at the grain and look at the blistering, like that would benefit from a 2-stopper. But then I also see your girls' points, because if everyone had to do a 2-stop, then they probably won't change it up.
Yeah.
Mercedes would do the same as Red Bull, and Renault would do the same as McLaren to try and beat them to get the best spot on the grid. So I do see what you're talking about, but I just think some races just need a little bit more spice thrown in there. And I mean, we saw how at Sakir a pit stop changed everything for George and Valtteri, so it can change the race.
I just think, again, going back to my point of, I think it's the tyres need to change, and you more need to change, like, make the tyre softer so that they can't do the 50 laps. Make the soft tyres, and I think that's a conversation that needs to go on between F1 and Pirelli and, like, development. But I think they need to make that more unknown, so that you have situations like the end of the British Grand Prix where the tyres go, because you never see that anymore, because they just become so reliant on the fact of, oh no, it's fine, we'll just push them, and then we'll push them a bit more and it'll be fine.
I agree.
I completely get that. I think there's pros and cons for both of these, and I think this is why we're having such a good argument about this, because there are just, you know, I can sit here and think there's good things about this, there's bad things about this. Anyway, moving on to more recent times, in 2020, Formula 2 ran the 18-inch Pirelli tyres, and they were basically trialling it out for F1 for this year. Now, if you watched Formula 2 last year, it was very touch and go with those tyres. It actually ruined a lot of people's careers, that's a bit too far. Well, technically, it could have ruined a lot of people's careers. A lot of people have stepped away from Formula 2, but anyway, it has ruined a lot of people's seasons, I will say. Some people completely just had the worst time because they could not work with these 18 inches. You could see from the cars, the tyres were massive. Now, the Formula 1 drivers actually trialled these out in an FP1 session last year, and I don't think there was one driver that actually liked them. Every single driver came out and said, I hate these tyres, they're not going to work, they're not heating up, I can't get any rubber in them, they hated it.
F1
So,
drivers
my
love
question-
to complain.
Oh, they do. Going into this year, I think they are still going to be using these 18 inches tyres. Do we think this is going to end up just making the whole season really, really bad? Obviously, we know 2021 isn't what we expected it to be anyway. We have no new regs. So do you think this is going to like make the racing even worse? Do you think the drivers are going to complain every race? Do you
know
think
what I
something
think?
really needs to change?
Sorry, I love to interrupt people.
I know.
She's so passionate about this subject, she's just got to get in there.
She's gotta
Do
get
you know
in.
what I think? I don't care if the drivers don't like the tyres. You're a Formula 1 driver, you're getting paid however much you're getting paid. Learn to adapt.
But when
That's
every
it.
single one of them is bad, I think that's the issue.
No, adapt. And the thing is, we're always going to have changes and innovations, and I think we've become way too reliant on the Formula One drivers' opinions.
Yeah.
In the past, they didn't get their opinions. You got the car, you drove the car.
Ooh,
Yeah.
she popping
I think-
off.
I just think, yes, hypothetically, maybe these tyres aren't the best, but we will have to learn to deal with them. And this is the thing, we never thought, there's certain aspects of racing that we don't think is going to, work. So the halo, everyone hated it, but then it
I
saved
loved
someone's
it.
life, So it's like all of these things that people are averse to, but it could actually end up being good. So the fact that the drivers don't like it, it's going to be unpredictable. None of the drivers are going to be able to understand the tyre behaviour, so it's going to be unpredictable, like something like Silverstone. So I would really like to see these new tyres. I think the drivers are too comfortable and need to be pushed a little bit more. Oh, too comfortable. It sounds really mean. I know I couldn't do it, but I still think, I stand by what I'm saying. I think they should use them.
I think we should get Steph in an F1 car and see how well she does.
Wow,
I won't be
Steph
able to
Vroom
reach the
Vroom.
pedals.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, because you're so small. No, I think, first of all, I think the tyres on the F2 cars, they look fit. They look so good on the F2 cars, I think. And hopefully, when we go to the new 2022 regs, these new tyres will look better on the new cars, because I think they're not going to look good on these cars whatsoever. And people are going to be like, nah, like the horrible little chats that I absolutely hate when it comes to how things look and design about Formula One. But that's me. So no, I'm excited for it because I think it shows another side of Formula One drivers that we'll get to see, is that the fact that they will have to make these tyres work, whether they like it or not. And that is another skill that these drivers will have to show, and over time we'll be able to see who is able to adapt to these tyres the quickest. And that really might mix up the field a little bit, particularly the midfield. The midfield is already so tight to begin with, and now we're going to have these new tyres come in, and it's really going to be about who can get to grips with the tyres the most. However, what we saw in Formula 2 is there were some drivers that really just got it straight away and just were able to go straight away on these tyres and have absolutely no problem. Really, Yuki and Schumacher were ones, and then there was others where they just never got to grip with them. Marcus Armstrong in particular, after he had such a great weekend, the first opening weekend, we just didn't see him, and his main issue was the tyres. He just couldn't get them to work. So I hope it's not that extreme when it gets to Formula One, because that will be disappointing that we have just certain drivers who just can't get the knack of it whatsoever, and others that just straight away pick it up. Hopefully it'll be over time that these drivers get used to the tyres, or just some weekends some are great and some aren't, because that would give that element of unpredictability that I think we're all looking for a bit more in Formula One.
That could be quite interesting as well, the fact that Yuki and Mick have trialled these tyres and have picked them up really well. Like, I think Yuki is going to shine this year, so the fact that he already knows the tyres might just be even better. So we should really look out for that, because I think that will be really interesting to see how they carry on with them tyres compared to drivers such as like Daniel or Lando, who've got to get used to them.
Donnie?
I don't really have much more to add. I'm not going to be honest. I am going to be honest.
Okay,
I'm not going to be honest. This really isn't my specialist subject, so I mean, bigger tyres means bigger colour blocks on the tyres, so hopefully the commentators will be easier to tell what tyre is going on the car, but much more
Coffee
than
might
that.
get it wrong.
Well,
I can't really say much, but as all the girls say, it will be interesting to see.
That's true. When it gets to a pit stop, maybe we'll actually be able to see what
Yeah.
that tyre is, rather than asking for 5 laps who's gone on what tyre, because no one knows. Not
And
even the
maybe-
graphics know. We're like, is that right? Do we believe
They
it?
should
And
just
it's
make the
changed
whole
half
tyre
the
that
way.
colour.
Wow.
Having someone else's tyres, and George having someone else's tyres, because their name will be bigger.
Right, they're big enough for you to see that they're the wrong tyres. Don't put them on George Russell again, alright?
This is triggering me.
Anyway,
Move the conversation
let's not think
on.
about it. Right, so my final question, you girls, this is a bit of a difficult one. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. But off the top of your head, if you could think of a better way to do these tyres, because I feel like there's pros and cons for both of these. I feel like if we could meet in the middle somewhere, I think Dawnie said, having a step lower as well, having the soft a bit, that would really help. So what would you do if you were the Mr. Pirelli man? I forgot what his name is, sorry.
Mr. Pirelli man.
It's like Miss Law Lady in the other one. if you haven't seen that video, it is on our channel, the F-Series quiz. Just plugging that. But yeah, if you were to come up with like the tyre situation, what would you do?
I would keep it soft, medium, hard, but I would have much bigger differences between them, so it is really obvious what is a soft tyre, what is a medium tyre, what is a hard tyre. In particular, because I think a lot of the time we hear them talking about the grading for the different type of tyre, and that might be really obvious to see from a driver's point of view or from the actual team's point of view or the commentator's point of view. However, for a viewer, I don't think it's as obvious as it could be. Whereas in Formula 2, you can see when someone's tyres have gone off the cliff, and that's what I think we need more in F1. So keep the set 3 colours, the set 3 soft, medium and hard, but actually make a huge difference between them. So we are not seeing people go on the softs for 60 odd laps, because I'm sick of it.
I'm gonna talk about practice. I think practice has actually been slashed from an hour and a half to only an hour.
Thank God.
I kind of
for
really
that.
like that. I think less practice as well means less knowledge on the tyres, and I think part of the reason why we are all stuck with similar strategies on a Sunday is because we test the tyres to oblivion on Fridays and Saturday mornings. So the fact that we've got less practice time, I would go even less. I'd just sack off Friday, and therefore there would be less knowledge on the tyres, and therefore it would make the race a little bit more interesting, because the teams and drivers won't have as much knowledge on what's going to work, so therefore they're all going to be more likely to take a risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it's like Formula 2 and Formula 3. They have, what do they have, like an hour? Not even that.
An
5
hour, and then they go straight into quali.
Yeah,
I'm
they
down
don't
for that.
have
That's
much
my
time.
suggestion. Take it up, F1.
I think for continuing on that point, even if we kept the practice times the same but reduced the amount of tyres that the teams had allocated for the weekend, because I don't know the
That's
exact
so
numbers,
many,
but I
don't
know
they?
that they need to put in however many tyres they give back after the Friday, and then they give more back. But if they reduced that, then it would force the teams to, they still had the full time to practice, but they wouldn't be able to be out on track as much, because they'd have less tyres and they'd have to look after them. So maybe that could be a little bit of a compromise.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that idea. I agree. I hate practice, so I don't care whether it stays or goes. Like, I would love to see it. Literally, I'd love F2 setup. I love one practice for an hour straight into quali, because like that doesn't give anyone the opportunity to like find out something new, or like everyone copy each other. Like, I like that. 1 hour straight into quali, the best driver, pole, there you go, done. But I also do want to see the big differences between the softs, the mediums and the hards, and also adapt what Dawny said and go a little bit softer, just so that we don't have long stints on the softs when it shouldn't be that long. But yeah, that's my
Good.
your
I
2
completely
cents.
agree with the softer tyre. That's all I really want. I don't really care what else you're doing. I just want a nice super soft that's purple or pink, you know, then I'll be done. That's lovely. That's all I want.
F-Series to sponsor Pirelli.
Yeah, oh my god, imagine just an F-Series around the tyre. That would be
We'll send you our colour codes.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just make it our colour. Anyway, that is it for our tyre talk. Thank you everybody for watching this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and do comment down below what you think of the tyre situation, whether you think this is going to be good to go to the 18 inches, whether you prefer what we've done in 2018. Just let us know your opinions. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. We will be back next week for another F-Series Friday. Thank you. Bye.